On air.
On air. Different intro this time. Usually it's rolling, but producer 1 says we're on air. Producer 2 is asleep, so I'll try to be a little bit quiet to keep him asleep because God blessed a sleeping cherub. And we have a new producer in the house, very quiet behind. You might hear a clinking of a Diet Coke with ice. That's producer Mom. She's going to make a celeb appearance at the end of the show when she predicts the winner of the men's side. Since I'm playing, you might be able to guess who she's going to pick to win. So this is a preview of the Hermosa Beach Open. As I'm recording this, the qualifier is going on right down at the pier. 5 courts are being streamed on VBTV, and then the handful that aren't, I know that Jason DeBelius of NY Varsity Sports, he's going to be streaming, and a couple others might be streaming the ones that aren't on VBTV, so you should get a lot of coverage regardless, and then you can just come down. It's free. We don't have a stadium, and so you just show up, and you bring your chair, and you stay there all day. It's just a very old-school tournament, and that's exactly what Mark Paolui, the one who is putting this on. So at the beginning of the year, the city of Hermosa reached out to Mark, asked if he could put on an event since there wasn't a professional tournament in Hermosa this year, and Mark, he's lived here his whole life. He is one of the shepherds of 16th, along with Ed Keller and Greg Delgado, and so he said, sure, and so he's just put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this. He's not making any money. There is one party of people who are making money in this event, and that is the players. Every dime dollar that is brought in that is above expenses, which we're going to open up the books after this just to show everyone how expensive it is to put on an event, even when we're not paying anyone. Any dollar that goes over expenses goes right back into the prize money. So it started at $130K total of prize money, went up to $140, and I think it's still climbing now. So you can still donate at hermosa-open.com if you want to keep increasing the prize money and go right into the players' pockets. So just going to do a quick preview on what this is. So it's a 32-team tournament. It's kind of a first of its kind in that we've opened it up so American players can play with international players, and we have 2 wildcard spots in the main draw and the qualifier for any international team. There are no one applied for the women's side, just a purely international team, but we have Ruben Peninga and Leon Luini of the Netherlands. They are our men's main draw wildcard, and then we have a Brazilian team in the qualifier, which is Pedro Oliveira and Gabriel Santiago. They're currently in the quali. Don't know if they're going to make it out, but those are our 2 men's wildcard teams. On the men's side, the fun American international pairings. Miles Partain is playing with Alex Ranghieri. Really fun team. Theo Brunner playing with Sam Schachter. Freaking love Sam. That's going to be a fun one. Sam's going to be so much nicer to Theo than Trevor was. No one's going to push Sam. Allison and Evan, already an international pairing. And I don't know if we have any other. We have Tim Brewster playing with Mace Sengers, practiced with them today. He is a young Dutch kid, very good, very talented, should be fun to watch. And then we have Marcus Carver-Hayes, Bill Kalinske. Marcus can play AVP, but he's a Brazilian. He's Guto's brother, and he is a fantastic player. On the women's side, we have Tina Gradina playing with Julia Scholes, the all-USC team, Latvia and the USA. That's a fun one. We have Heather Bansley, 3-time Olympian, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, playing with Megan J. Rice, not Megan Arroz. That's the Florida Megan Rice. Betsy Flint playing with, and I apologize if I'm butchering this name, Vilhelmina Pritti of Finland. Now, she is playing at LMU, and so that is Finland, USA, and I believe everyone else is pretty standard on the women's side in terms of just American partnerships. Now, to answer, I'm going to go through some questions that we have on YouTube. The number one that was asked is, how did you pull Andy Benesh, arguably the greatest player in the United States right now? I'll just read you the exact, very brief text exchange. I just sent him a text and said, hey, are you and Miles playing Hermosa? The registration deadline's coming up. He goes, I'm not sure yet. Was thinking about trying to get Schachter to play. Told him that Schachter was playing with Theo. And he goes, okay, sweet. I'll try to think about who to play with. And then I said, jokingly, do you want to run a retirement tournament with me? And he said, I'm down. And before he could take it back, I signed us up, and that's how it happened. So me and Andy, we've been good friends for a long time. We've gone camping with him and Deanna, who we call Hot Aunt Deanna because my son is obsessed with Deanna. And so it's just going to be a fun kind of going away tournament for me. My first tournament as a player since the Chicago qualifier, unless you count CBVAs. Played one CBVA this year, won it. Jorge Martinez, shout out. That's my guy. And so this will be sort of the last professional tournament I play since the Chicago qualifier of last year, so more than a calendar year. But the big dogs, Chase Budinger, Miles Evans, they're in. Theo Brunner, Schachter, they're in. Hagen Smith, Logan Weber, Triborn, and Ryan Wilcox. Cody Caldwell, Sean Cook, Phil Dahlhauser, Avery Drost. That's a strong 10 seed. Team Coach Dad, Paul Lotman, Billy Allen. And then came Shock, James Schalt, very good 14 seed. On the women's side, loaded per usual. Kelly Chang and Sarah Hughes, they're the 1. Therese Cannon, Megan Kraft are the 3. Savvy Simo, Abby Van Winkle. A little bit of adversity in Chicago. Didn't make the league. You guys have heard about the Droms. We put it up on our Chicago recap. They're trying to get a little redemption. They're the 4 seed. Tony Rodriguez, Gina Urango, one of the hottest teams in the USA. They're the 5. Kylie DeBerg, Haley Harward, they are the 6. Kim Hildreth, Tegan Van Gunst, they are the 7. Heather Bansley, the 8, and then it is fairly loaded from all the way down. So it's a fantastic tournament. It's not an AVP. There's no points on the line, just decent amount of prize money, new format. There will be a double final, and so it's a true double elim. We're not doing an Olympic crossover. That was a big point of Pa'alui. He wanted to do a true double elim, which means if you make the semifinals and if you make the finals out of the winner's bracket and you are playing the team that came out of the loser's bracket and the team that came out of the loser's bracket won, it is a double final. So there will be a golden set for the final. And so it's a true double elim. So if you get to the finals and if you have 0 losses and you lose, you get your redemption. And so this is sort of Mark's baby. I was brought along just to send communications to the players and make connections where they needed it. And so VBTV was brought on board. And that's been great. And it's online right now. We're streaming 5 courts, and anyone else can stream as much as they want. Now, to get to some of your questions, Sean Yates asked, how legal is Troy Field's block? It is very illegal, but it's too cool for anyone to call it. He's only been called once. And most refs, because you don't see it, I think the surprise factor, they're not going to call it, and it makes for too many good highlights. So let the boy play. VB Sand, are we thinking about next year making this an annual post-Chicago event, maybe mandatory, that each USA player find an expat to play with? I don't like making anything mandatory. I think it's cool to have that as an option, but if you have a team like Chase and Miles that wants to play together, I think that they should have that ability. That said, I love all the international American pairings, and I know that Mark wants to make this an annual thing, and Volleyball World's very interested in having an event in the United States, and so I think this will be a good sort of test event, especially with True Volley rankings. It's the only ranking system that I could find that is universal for both American and international, so we didn't have to try to convert FIVB points to AVP and vice versa. And so the idea is to make this a somewhat annual event, so long as it doesn't conflict with an AVP, with an Elite 16. That was a big thing. It was a bummer that we conflicted with the King of the Court finals in Utrecht, but those were the dates that were available, and it just happened to work out that we got it in after Chicago and before the league. So as long as it doesn't conflict with anything, I think it'd be awesome if this is an annual event. Rich D. Flipan, Julia Skulls, Tina Gradina going to take it. All right, we got one bet on Julia Skulls and Tina Gradina. Split blocking, should be fun to watch. Remind us of the point structure over the course of the league games. So the AVP League is being played 3 sets to 15. And I asked Bobby Corvino, the new AVP CEO, why that was the case. And so it's just a guarantee that every match in the AVP League will be fit within an hour time slot for television's sake. And so if you have a 3-setter, which we have a lot on the women's side, and the AVP refs, they allow players a lot of time. A lot of AVP matches will go over an hour, and that makes it very difficult for TV. And you could see the Manhattan Open finals where I was coaching with Betsy and Julia. We were first trying to be rushed out of timeouts to cram it into the hour block that the AVP had with Ion, and then another block was added, and so then we could slow back down. And so they're just trying to avoid that. So that's the reasoning that the AVP League will be played 3 sets to 15 as opposed to the standard 21, 21, 15. Pickle Hunter Tim. How's that name? Jokes aside, it might be a good chance to talk about True Volley ratings a bit and the fact that the qualifier seeds slot into main draw positionally as opposed to AVP, which reseeds everyone by points. So True Volley, if anybody plays chess, it is based on who you beat and who you lose to, not where you finish in a tournament. And so you'll see a lot of teams will play these challenge events in the fall where no one else plays. And a gold medal in a challenge event where no one else plays is worth the same as a gold medal in, say, Recife or Saquarema, which is basically an Elite 16, which I think is a somewhat flawed system because it doesn't really reward you for beating good teams and losing to bad teams. It just rewards you for finishing high in a tournament that was a little bit above a futures level. Now, there's a lot of confusion. There's some sus ratings for sure. You got player like Lev Prima, I think, is ranked higher than Kame Shock, which is just objectively wrong. But I do think that given a high enough sample size, that's the best way to do it. And so if you lose to a team that's better than you, like if I were to lose to Phil Dahlhauser and Nick Lucena in their prime, I wouldn't go down a bit and they would hardly go up. But if I were to beat, say, a Phil and Nick, my rating would go way up. And because that's a team that was objectively well above my level. And so that's basically a very simple way of explaining how True Volley works. Again, it's not a perfect system, but there is no system that's perfect. As in right now, you got Theo Brunner and Trevor Crabb. They're the number 3 team in the USA in everyone's minds as far as international goes, but they're not even on the USA stipend because they've had 3 bad finishes in a row. And so there's no perfect system. I think True Volley is one of the best ways to do it if you have a big enough sample size. Sir Fantasy Stats Guru. Did the world miss a huge opportunity for some international world-class defender to call up Dahlhauser to play in this one-off? I think Phil is married to Avery at the moment. They're kind of a Wedbush team. And a huge shout-out to Wedbush, by the way. Without that title sponsorship, this event probably doesn't happen. Everyone, give love to Wedbush. Give them some traffic. Go check out the options that they have. And just shout them out on social media because this event doesn't happen without Wedbush. And I think that Phil and Avery, married through Wedbush Securities, if there wasn't a conflict with Utrecht and if we had more run time before the event that we knew the dates, we only had a couple months that we knew the dates. I think more players could have come, but the trip is really expensive. And a lot of the top European teams are playing King of the Court in Utrecht because the money's great. There's hardly any travel to get to the Netherlands from Europe. We're lucky to have a handful that we do. And so that, I think, if we are going to do this event next year and if we have about a year lead up, as a lot of events do, I think then we'll see a lot more international players interested. Eric Cam, Beach Volleyball, always appreciate your support. How's the $130K in prize money? I think now it's up to $140K being distributed. We use the precedent that the AVP uses for the Manhattan Open just on a percentage basis, and we will release that when we can. But I'm playing, and so when I'm not playing, when I get knocked out, which hopefully will be a little bit later in the tournament, I can get you guys an official answer on that. Once we also figure out how much prize money we do have, because it keeps growing, which is great. We're the Crabb brothers and Taylor Sander from Ryan Wong. They're all at the same wedding, so they are out. And what ball are we playing with? Wilson and Lance Story. Any teams you know of yet? You can go on to volleyballlife.com and you can find all the information you need to know. So that is everything you need to know about the Hermosa Open, a little bit about the AVP League. I think probably Monday or Tuesday we'll do a primer on the AVP League, just answering all the questions that you have, giving you all the information you know. I don't know where it's being streamed. I'll ask Bobby and Josh Glazebrook. I'm not sure if they know quite yet exactly. I would assume that the AVP YouTube will have all the replays as they do from everything else. So at the very least, you can watch all the matches there. Mom, you ready for your moment?
I'll have my moment from here.
She says she'll have her moment from there. Mom, who's going to win the Hermosa Beach Open?
Travis and Andy.
Travis and Andy. Come on. Thank you to Producer 1. Thank you for staying asleep, Producer 2. Thank you, Producer Mom, for your love and support. Love everyone. Shoots.